Stay tuned. You are about to enjoy a conversation I had with Jonathan Spears, who's had $2 billion in lifetime sales. Today, he shares the 3 areas any struggling agent should be focusing on in their business. Now, before we get started, if you are curious to learn a little bit more about the exclusive Inner Circle group, go ahead and head over to realtor180.com. And as always, I'm your host and referral partner out of San Francisco, Shawn Kunkler. Jonathan, what's up, man? I'm so stoked to have you here today.
Shawn, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
This is super cool. And, before we actually kick this off, what I share with my guests is you now are officially invited to the Inner Circle group. And it's a reserved group for all the past guests of the episodes who are all heavy hitters nationwide. So it's a phenomenal way for you to network. So you have my personal invite moving forward.
Honored. So glad to be here. We're going to have fun. We got a lot to talk about today.
Dude, we have so much to unpack. To give everybody a really quick digest, who are you and what do you do?
My name is Jonathan Spears. And I am a principal with Spears Group, which is a luxury real estate team on Florida's northwest coast. So I'm in an area that we've dubbed the Hamptons of the South. So I sell in a second home market. We do development, we do sales. I think of myself more as an entrepreneur, and real estate has been such an unbelievable entrepreneurial outlet for me. And that's something interesting that we'll dig into, because I think a lot of folks listening are either in the business, just got in, have been in for a little while. I've been in for 15 years. So I used to be the young guy on the scene. I got my license at the ripe age of 18. So
crazy.
Basically, for most of you, fresh out of high school.
That's wild. And so, and you're kind of, and this is going to date me, but you're a bit of a Doogie Howser. You went to college before you had a license.
If you Googled Doogie Howser, I would probably pop up, because that was my nickname in college.
Really?
I had no idea who Doogie Howser was. I've never watched that show. I know who Neil Patrick Harris is, but it was something my college professors and everybody in the class started calling me. So I started school at 14, and I always say it was my first grade cold call, because I was homeschooled at the time, and I didn't get along with my peers very well. Like I was going to middle school, and it's not that I was getting in trouble. I just wasn't loving it. I don't know that I was some straight A student. I just was very stubborn, very headstrong, and knew I wanted to get into either the workforce immediately, or I needed to just get into something. I had high levels of energy, very, very driven. And I called the dean of the local community college and said, listen, I'm homeschooled. I may only be 14, but I've already, passed my 9th and 10th grade exams for my homeschool program. Could I dual enroll in lieu of going to high school? And usually you've got to be like 16 and in the 10th grade to dual enroll. And so they said if I could pass a Florida college placement test in all the areas that they require, which is like math, English, social studies, whatever it was, then I could enter into full-time classes. And not only that, in Florida, the state pays for those classes.
Wow.
Which obviously is a huge benefit.
Sure.
So it's an amazing program. If anybody out there is interested, there's a Bright Futures program and there's a dual enrollment program. And that may be available in other states as well. So long story short, passed those tests, immediately enrolled in college classes where people thought the teachers were my parents. And I milked that as long as I could, but then they saw my mom dropping me off at school every day. So that was another conversation.
That's wild. And what at that age, because obviously you're pretty young and not exposed to a ton of stuff in the world, what inspired you about real estate? Why that industry?
Well, it's interesting. So at 14, when I started college, I thought I wanted to be in finance. So that's where I started. That's where the direction of my degree went. I loved real estate. I loved architecture. My parents always said, I was the kid that from an early age would try to order lobster and caviar on a menu. And so I just naturally gravitated towards quality. And real estate was no exception. I love beautiful houses. I love beautiful cars. I was just very like, caught up with those types of things, and it was a passion. And so in school, we thought about real estate agents like the dirt on the bottom of your shoe, like they were low on the totem pole. And then you had these television shows come out like $1 Million Listing.
Yeah.
I distinctly remember that it was $1 Million Listing New York and LA, and you could see where there was opportunity to scale a business very quickly without having any of this sort of corporate red tape, which my personality, especially at the time, being a 14-year-old going rogue to college, did not cater to. And so I wanted to figure out how could I be entrepreneurial, what would be a great outlet. And coming out of college, which I got my first degree at, I think it's 16, 17, second degree at 18, 19, real estate was a really great option for me.
That's so interesting. It's funny. Similar to you, I hate arbitrary rules, loathe them. And there was something incredibly intriguing about real estate where you make up the rules, like in terms of growing your business, scaling it, who you hire, what roles they play. There's zero rules. It's truly entrepreneurial. You create they do. And that's that's the curiosity and the intriguing part from doing this podcast is there's zero right way of doing it. There is no exact right way, and all these agents are crushing it, and they've all done it on these completely different trajectories, which I find incredibly fascinating.
Yeah.
And even within that, the highly successful ones really figured out, not even quick, but they figured out at some point, my personality is phenomenal in this space. And so I just need to do more of that. And then that's the rocket fuel that really, again, I've talked to some incredible agents like yourself, and that's like the rocket fuel behind it. And I love very early on that you said you were entrepreneurial, and that's how you thought about all of this. Yeah. And you can clearly see with how you've scaled to 20 plus people on your team and having done $2 billion in lifetime sales, you can absolutely see where that clearly shines through.
Man, some kids love to get up and watch cartoons on the weekend. I like to mix up lemonade in the kitchen and get ready for a lemonade stand. That was my fun. I'm still that way, I have to dial it back.
Was that your first endeavor into business, lemonade?
One of them. I remember distinctly stealing all the Coke cans out of my parents' pantry and trying to pawn them across the neighborhood with a roll-around cooler. Being in Florida, it's hot. So summertime, it's not hard to find some people who want something refreshing.
That's hilarious. I totally forgot about this, but when I was young, my parents divorced and I lived with my mom, and we lived in a third floor walk-up. Yeah. And the second floor neighbors, reflecting on it now, were alcoholics. I didn't know it at the time, but when you go down the stairs, you would pass by, in between the house and the stairs was on the other side was their porch, which was full of cans. So I would knock on their door and be like, "Hey, can I take your cans to the store? I'll give you half." And then they're like, "No, just keep it." And I'm like, "Great." And so I was making like a few bucks a day just from walking.
All your first real dopamine hits were like, making those sales. You got that feeling. You got the taste.
I totally did. And then I think for me personally, I got super, super lucky. My dad had a couple businesses when I was 5. He started his final business, which he owned for 45 years. And I literally grew up visiting him on weekends, hanging out at the shop, going there after work. Yeah. I just saw it all the time. I watched it grow from 2 guys to multiple people, move buildings and just keep growing. And so that gave me a level of dopamine it was just such a cool
next level
experience. It really was. And then when the business started doing well and I saw the success, that really, because I lived 2 lives at that point, right? I lived at a third floor walk up on one in one life, and then my dad had this beautiful 5-bedroom home in another life. And so I got to see both sides and realize
it's powerful.
It's power. It was hard, but it was powerful of realizing that money is a great tool for us, and in real estate is clearly a phenomenal vehicle. But
Right.
we joked about it right before we started recording, and I would love your take on it. There's a huge difference between what people think we actually do
Yeah.
and then what we really genuinely do day to day.
Definitely. Yeah. If you follow me on social media, on my Instagram account at Jonathan M. Spears, I just posted a video of what people think I do, which
Yeah.
is this glamorous, party filled, driving around in G-Wagon, all these fun things that people think we do as agents. Like we just show and tour and go walk the most beautiful properties on the planet all day versus the reality, which is like, crawling in the underbelly of a $25 million house, trying to spot where the hot water lines come in and, eating my lunch on the go because I don't have time to ever sit down and stop. Taking phone calls at all hours of the evening. And, it's constant, it's nonstop. And frankly, I wouldn't have it any other way. I love it, and I think that there's such a privilege in the ability to serve folks the way that we do.
I agree. We even subtly we changed our vocabulary within the company. We no longer say home sold. It's clients helped,
Yep.
and we view it as we really try to shift the perspective because I think that is incredibly important, not to get caught up in the dollars and cents of the business, but truly the end result is our client and their happiness and well-being through our shepherding this experience for them. And it's so funny, like when you were talking about driving a nice car and showing up, I'm like, my car always just smells like what I just had for lunch because I was
100%.
hustling to the next spot, and there's like mayonnaise on the steering wheel from it.
Definitely, yeah. Mine smells like cauliflower and grilled chicken. I mean, there's nothing overly sexy about cauliflower and grilled chicken. But it's the nature of the beast, right? Like
totally
on top
is.
of managing a hectic schedule, high levels of stress, which is really like the biggest cortisol hit. You also have to
Yeah.
manage your health, your mental health, the way that you create consistent results. And I think that is the hardest part of sales and probably the biggest barrier of entry. So when we go back and we talk about, okay, real estate looks like a flashy lifestyle, looks like a way to make money quickly. And large amounts of it, right? Especially when you're making 3% of $1 million. How many of us at 18, 19, 20 ever saw $30,000, outside of maybe an early Bitcoin investor or somebody pumping and dumping stocks? It's like, man, that's like a lottery, So what is it about real estate that separates those that aspire to those that conquer? And with our team especially, and with all the conferences I go to, the places that I speak, what I often preach is that you can get into this business very easily. But to be successful in this business and operate for a very long time, just like your father did for 40 plus years, how do you create an engine and a machine that's built around organization? And it's the hardest word. It's almost like a trigger word for most of us that want flexibility. We want to make our own schedule, but most of us never discipline down to creating that schedule. And ideally, we operate like professionals, but most of the population of real estate agents are just hobbyists. They run around and they don't operate consistently. I often liken it to your favorite bank. You walk into the bank. If you saw no line, people just yelling at each other, tellers that were stacking papers left and right, and they really weren't putting anything in files or folders. They weren't doing anything on their computer. They were just taking names and throwing it around. You probably walk out of that bank and go, have I gone crazy? Like, I never put my money here. But if you think about most real estate agents, we're popcorn agents. We may, hop in the car as soon as somebody asks and, don't sign buyer agent agreements because we just didn't feel like it, or that's too much effort. We're just on to the next without any real thought about a process. And so for me, it's not like I started off this way of building organization, which organization is the most valuable thing in the world. I started off like the formal, the guy that's running around just trying to put out the first fire that I see, and jump on the hottest, warmest lead that I could find, and just try to make results happen. But how do I make results happen over and over and over and over, and really at the highest level? And I had to think about implementing systems and processes, not only for myself but for our team, that create those results.
Preach. I could not agree with you more. And I feel like with a lot of the agents that I've talked to is, well, if we just kind of step back and we look at people in general, we all have vastly different personalities, but there's similarities between the personalities. And I personally feel like the first step is really self-reflecting and really genuinely figuring out who you are. What are you good at? And then be really honest with the things you're not good at, and strategically trying to figure out, how do you get enough money to hire a person who does all those things you hate to do? And they love to do it. They wake up early and they stay up late loving the things that are on your I hate list.
Yeah.
And because I totally love a good system. It runs the whole business, but me sitting down and putting it all together, that's actually not my strength. I can high level it, I can brainstorm it, but I'm good at walking away.
Yeah.
Whereas Kat, my ops person, her passion is the organization of it, filing it, putting it somewhere where it's accessible. And I would say, if somebody's going to hire somebody, it's find your opposite, who again loves, with a capital L, the things you hate.
That's right.
And build the systems.
Yeah, there's tools to do that too. I mean, we use a tool called the predictive index.
Oh, nice.
So the last two Super Bowl championships, all of the teams that played in those championships use predictive index. So I would highly recommend everybody to look at that. I think we all can see certain traits in and of ourselves, but sometimes being able to understand people from afar, and especially the salesperson, is very important. So that's a great tool to leverage. But let's talk about agents that maybe they're not at the point to hire an assistant yet, right?
Sure.
I mean, maybe you're an agent out there that's struggling. What do you do? How can I get better? If I'm a single agent, maybe I haven't had a sale in 6 months, right? Like, I'm highly considering leaving the business. The advice that I would give to somebody like that, and I know there's a lot of folks out there, especially in markets that have shifted over the last few years from sort of these pandemic highs to a more sobered market, is that our business is nothing more than creating lifelong relationships and making raving fans. So when you feel lost and you're deer in the headlights, which I always tell my team, a deer in the headlights is going to get hit, right? It's just a matter of time. And so when you're deer in the headlights and you're not willing to move, which is taking those action steps to get out of the space that you're in, you have to come back to a principle foundation. And for us, it's like, okay, we need to go out and build relationships, number one. And then you say, okay, Jonathan, well, how do you do that, right? Like, I hate cold calling. I'm just not good at it, right? Like, what do I do? Open houses, I'm not really seeing that many people, or people don't want to sign in. The first thing I tell you is to mind your vibe, right? So people want to work with people they like. And so when you're likable and approachable and ultimately trustworthy, that's the recipe for success. It's not about how much real estate have you sold, how smart are you, how well do you know the market. We can get facts about the market. We can arm our agents with those facts, but if they can't be likable and approachable, they're not going to be successful. Yeah. And so a lot of times when people wake up every day and they're feeling the weight of the world on their shoulders, like, I can't get any traction. It's a flip of the switch in your mind and creating awareness on those pieces. Like, what are you putting out? What is your vibe like that day? How are you approaching the world? What type of positivity are you attracting?
Yeah, and I want to pause you. Sorry for interrupting. But how do you, because you and I we've both been in the trenches, and you have those days you wake up and it's just like the dark cloud. How do you recalibrate your mind before you get started?
I naturally, and I've done this from, a very early age, it's definitely what spurred me on to want to be the overachiever of going to college early and, really trying to find who I was. I wake up every day as if I really just started fresh. I don't feel like today we closed the house for $10 million. I don't look at that and go, okay, I'm set. Like I'm satisfied. I wake up and go, that is business that I did 2 months ago. I have got to get after it today. What I'm doing today is really the result that I'm going to have in December or January of next year.
True.
And every day that passes that I don't feel like I planted a seed is a crop that's not going to grow tomorrow. And so I have that mindset personally with my health, with my family, or in my business. Like that's just how I approach life naturally. And I think for anybody out there, if you wake up and you go, man, I'm comfortable, like this is okay. This may not be the business, like this aspect, this part of the business, the sales side may not be the right fit.
Yeah.
Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, I'd love that.
Maybe a more brutalist perspective, but that's mine.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. And a coach very early on in the business told me, whatever you're doing today will show up in 3 months. And that for me was always, it made me stop looking at, well, I do this today. I'm going to do a favor for somebody today and it's going to show up tomorrow. It's not how it works.
Yeah.
But 3 months from now, there's this crazy compounding effect. And, it's similar to working out.
Well, Shawn, the best thing you could do today is you could spend the next 8 hours and you could journal every single thing you do. It could be as detailed as, this is when I go to the bathroom, this is when I eat, this is who I call, this is how many calls I made, this is who I actually spoke with and how long we talked. You may find that you speak to your mom for 3 hours a day and it's a waste of your time. Like you may enjoy it, it may make you feel busy, but it's not necessarily yielding sales. Yeah. So what I tell our team is dial in an ideal daily schedule. Whether you're at day one in real estate or day one in any business, whether you're in medical sales, real estate sales, anywhere, figure out how you could create more capacity with your time. And the only way we do that is by reflecting and journaling and understanding how we're spending our active time.
Jonathan, you reminded me, I had this business coach, and this was seriously the most brutal thing I've ever done. I mean, it was brutal. She made me for a week, which is a full week, which is insane.
Yeah, commitment. Yeah.
But every time I changed tasks, I literally had to put the exact time to the minute. And then you basically do that task and then you have to put the next thing on. So it's like you and I are having a conversation and it's let's say it's like 12:01 and then I stop and do a text. I have to put the time that I check that text and then I go back to what I was doing and then I pick up the phone. And then I go, and it's when you see in detail what you're doing, you immediately, it's crazy, but you immediately take ownership of all your wasted time. And it's bonkers when you see, holy crap, I spent X amount of hours on doom scrolling Instagram.
No doubt. And your phone will actually tell you how long you spent on Instagram. Here's what I find though, Shawn. This is the problem with our business. This is the reason that more agents aren't optimally productive is they're afraid to step on the scale. And so for me, I watch my weight. I literally have somebody comes and they literally measure the fat on my body, right? Like that's the extreme level of commitment I have to my health and trying to optimize what I want from my life. In our business, when we've been binge drinking or binge eating, aka scrolling Instagram, being on TikTok, I would tell you this, a non-actionable routine. So when I'm consuming versus, projecting myself out into the world, I'm not optimally productive. And so most of us go, we don't really want to know. Like, how many of y'all really want to know how much time you're spending on Instagram that's not posting, that's not, messaging your clients, that's not creating lifestyle content? Most of us go, I don't really want to know, right? Because we're afraid of the result. And I think that when you're afraid to face the facts, it can be a hindrance. And the first step to doing that is really self-audit. And even if it's just a one-day self-audit, you don't have to do a week. Start with a day. Break it down into 24 hours. What did I do from when I wake to when I go to bed? And look at that and say, what would I have loved to do that creates the goal that I have in mind for myself, whether it be a sales goal. I have sales goals, family goals, fitness goals, healthcare goals, multiple business goals, right? Like there's all types of different things, but I didn't start it off that complicated. I just started with, I know I want to work out today. I know I want to go on a date night this week. I know I want to travel 3 months from now. So how do I do that? Like, what am I going to do to get myself to those points? And you refine from there.
Same page. It's so interesting when you measure something, you can grow it. And recently, I too work out regularly. I have a gym at home, super convenient. I was working with a really good friend of mine who's a professional bodybuilder. And he's like, I don't think you're taking enough protein. And I was like, no, I'm totally fine. He's like, track it.
Man, how much TRT are you taking? Come
on. He was like, track your protein. Track it for a week and then let me know. And then I tracked it and I was like, oh man, I'm not getting enough protein. Or I'm getting it for lunch and I'm getting it for dinner, but I'm not actually getting it enough for breakfast or my snacks in between. But in my mind, like I was like, no, I'm doing a good job. Like I'm eating chicken, I'm eating broccoli, I'm eating like healthy things.
Yeah.
But the moment I measured it, I was like, oh, this is now quantifiable. And same with your business. It's like, when you're in your mind, you're like, no, I totally, reached out to all my clients who own homes just to check in and see if they needed help with anything. And then when you measure it, you're like, wow, it was actually just 2 in the past month.
That's right.
And so
man, I'm feeling so slow. Why do I feel slow? I'm seeing other people make sales. What's happening? And then you go, well, shoot, I had a big sale 3 months ago. And I never prospected that. I didn't send out any direct mailers. I sent an email blast. I just sent one and that was about it. Like you start to see like the evidence doesn't lie.
Yeah. This is going to be inflammatory, but success is sometimes the biggest kiss of death for business, for real estate agents.
Absolutely.
Because you get 6 deals. You're like, wow, this is easy. You stop doing the things that got you the 6 deals. Right. You focus on the deals. And then a few months later, you now have literally nothing happening. And you're like, oh, what should I do? And we chase another shiny object, but we don't go back to that thing that got us those 6 in the first place. And we totally lose our trajectory. To go back,
what you do too is you can hang tightly onto those 6 things that made you successful in maybe yesterday's market, but you're seeing the market start to shift, and your unwillingness to try new things doesn't mean you got to try 6 new things. But your unwillingness to try new things, or maybe to do something that makes you uncomfortable, can also hold you back. So we're seeing that in these transitional markets now, and I think that it's important for you to do the hard things. Success in any sales business is about doing the things other people are unwilling to do.
It's hilarious you say that, because I built my entire book of business on open houses. And my manager, who was in the business for 40 plus years, Sally, I love her dearly. She said, you have to find another thing to add to that. And I was like, no, it's totally fine. And then sure as hell, the pandemic hits. And open houses stopped. And I didn't have that second thing because I was banking on that one thing. And it really, to your point, it threw me for a loop, and I had to really recalibrate and really figure out how to do things different because I didn't have a backup to it.
How did you pivot, Shawn? What did you do? So we're out here and maybe we've been crushing open houses, but that well's been drying up, or it's not producing the same consistency. What did you do to pivot?
That is a phenomenal question. So one of the things that I did is, it was prior to that we had built a relationship marketing campaign. And this is a long-winded answer, but there was a point when you used to be able to call the phone company and say, hey, I'm at the end of my contract. And they would literally give you a new phone. So I would get a new iPhone every time my contract was up. And I got to the end of the contract and I said, hey, it's time for me to get a new phone. I'll sign a new contract. They're like, we don't offer that. And I said, okay, I've been with you guys for like 15 years. What do you have? And they're like, oh, nothing. And I was like, okay. And so I go on the website and it says new customers get a free iPhone and an iPad. So I said to the woman, I said, I'm looking at your website and it says you're giving a free phone and iPad. She's like, that's for new customers. And I said, hold on, you're treating new customers better than old customers? Cancel my contract. And she goes, why do you want to cancel your contract? I said, then I'm brand new and then I'll get a phone and iPad. And she's like, well, let me talk to my manager. And like an hour later, they wind up giving me a phone and an iPad. But that epiphany of treat the people who already know you better than the new people really shifted something inside of me. And I created the relationship marketing, and we spend a ton of money on events, gifts, note cards, handwritten cards. Yeah. And, within that, the one thing that only the agent and the client will ever celebrate is the day they bought the house. It's the one holiday that no one else is going to care about. And so we make that a huge celebration for them. Love that. And so when the pandemic hit, unfortunately I had to lay off my support staff, reorganize my business. We didn't know how deep or wide that hole was going to be. Right. And then as things started picking up, which they did really fast, I rehired. I hired Kat, my operations manager. Yeah. She just kicked butt. We implemented the relationship marketing, and I just spent more time talking to people and building relationships, that was your step number one, is build relationships. And then, just being in flow with people and talking to them and like, oh, congratulations, you're having another baby. That's amazing. Yeah. And then a couple of weeks later, you get the call, we actually just need more space. Like, I'd be happy to help. Let's talk about what that looks like. And
but you're also preemptively positioning yourself. See, most people stop pursuing clients when they don't want to buy or sell. So what happens to us, we have a customer. So let's call it, our active clients or our current sphere of influence. Mm-hmm. And we just stop prospecting them. When they close on a deal, it's like, okay, great, they close. Let's go on to the next customer that we have that could be interested now. What I try to tell our team, and this similar to a macro split you talked about, but a 30-30-30 bucket of where you spend your time, which is a third of your time is going to go to your current prospects. And that's your active clients, the ones that are under contract, just talking to them, touching base, continuing to deepen that relationship. The next one is your sphere of influence, which those could be past clients, which are the ones we usually leave in the dust because we're trying to chase the next one.
Exactly.
It could also be your favorite barista at a coffee shop. Like, how many of you guys go into a coffee shop or a great lunch spot or a great dinner spot and you talk to the staff? When I talk to my agents about becoming the mayor of a market, and Shawn, I know you're good at this because you love people. It's why you love to prospect doing events and things like that. When you go into a restaurant, especially in your farm market, you want to know who's working there and you want to light up their day. You want to love on them. You want to create those relationships. So, look, when I bring a client in, they're going to take amazing care, especially if they mention me or if I'm with them, of course. And so and that's not the only reason to do it. It's obviously great just to love on people in general. But the goal here is becoming the mayor of a market. And what does mayor? What does a mayor do? If you just Google mayor, they're shaking hands and kissing babies. Mm-hmm. Right? That's like the traditional version of running a spot. So what does that boil down to? It boils down to that likability, that love of people, and really an understanding of a location.
And that goes back to your point of checking your vibe. If you walk in, you go to the same coffee spot, you're always grumpy. You're always like avoiding eye contact. Yeah. You're just throwing off the energy of I don't want to talk to you. I'm having a bad day. Yeah. That's what they're feeling. And the reality is somebody owns that business. Yeah. And you don't know where those people are at. And I actually, oddly enough, the baristas, their grandparent passed, left them a property, and then was asking me advice. So you never know, to your point, where that business...
They're interacting with your clients. I'll tell you the worst personality, the one that I can't stand the most. Like, you could tell me F off, no problem. But when you're acting like you're too busy, right? Let's say you're at a showing and you got 50 showings and you're like, hurry, I'm so busy. Like, I got all this stuff to do. Busyness is nothing more than anxiety. And when you
Good point.
fuel anxiety, you portray anxiety, you spit that out on your clients, I mean, they're never going to work with you again. They're not going to enjoy the process. It's
Yeah.
not going to be fun, and it's not attractive.
No, I mean, no one wants to hang out at a dinner party with the anxious person who's like doom and gloom and the sky's falling. Like you're going to leave with anxiety.
Or like, oh my God, I got to go to the next thing. And oh, I forgot about that. And like that goes back to that bank teller that doesn't know what she's doing. She's stacking papers all over the place. Like, absolutely not. That's not consistency.
Well, and on that same token is my manager, Sally, actually told me this as well. She's like, never portray that you're too busy because people will assume you're too busy to help them.
Absolutely.
And so portray that you're active, but not overly busy. And
That's
so,
right.
and there's a dance with that is like, oh, I'm excited to start my day. I'm off to a new property inspection. My client just got under contract. Like that portrays what you're doing, but it's not, oh, I have 50,000 things to do today. I don't know how I'm going to get it all done.
Or I only got 5 minutes to chat. What do you got?
Yeah. Like go.
You can't put boundaries. Boundaries are good, right? But you have to temper that.
You do. I have a book recommendation for your team. I don't know if you guys do any like book club or anything like that, but building relationships, there's a book called The Like Switch, Like. It changed the way that I approached open houses. It's, we were just talking about you put off a vibe, but it actually talks about the vibes. And it's written by a former FBI agent who was recruiting spies and had to get people to like them through body language, through the way they approach people, through like the different ways of contact. It's a great read.
Phenomenal. I like.
Super easy read. And it's one of my favorite just stories at the end of how this person was basically able to work their way into a different, basically different caste, if you will.
Love it.
So
I would say too, my goal when I do an open house, I'm not there to really sell that house. I'm there to find parallels with anybody that walks in the door. What is the fastest way for me to make a connection?
Yeah.
It may be watch, it may be a dog, it may be shoes, it may be, location. For us being in a second home market, it's fun because nobody lives here full time. So you're always trying to figure out, okay, where's somebody coming from? And, how do we parallel that area?
And it really helps when you do that. You enter their world. Like, oh, you have a really cool accent. Where are you from? And you enter their world, and it's no longer, they don't feel like you're selling them. You're just curious. And
That's right.
People love talking about themselves. Yeah. And I think there's, especially in conversation or at open houses, people give off tons of cues, and you can very easily figure out a way to open up that conversation and ultimately open them up, and parlay that in. So we talked about building out relationships, your ideal schedule. Yeah. Is there anything else on that list that you would recommend new agents do to build out their business?
Absolutely. So when you build out an ideal daily schedule, don't forget to prospect other agents in the community that you're farming.
Yes.
So the biggest mistake that we make is we often don't pour as much into prospecting agents, which will in the long term be our greatest client, because they've got access. Like I'm just one agent and there's 20,000 in my market. Those 20,000 agents combined have access to more buyers and more sellers than I do at any given time. Yeah. And so my relationship with those agents and my ability to not only be a collaborator, but really be somebody that they trust as well could be the difference between getting my client a deal and not. And also we trade on information. So the biggest thing about talking to other agents is they love to talk. And for you to be able to share information back and forward is powerful. Especially and I always tell our team, don't cast your net too wide when you're trying to farm a market. So if you're in San Francisco and you're like, I'm an area I'm in a realtor in the Bay Area, what does that really mean? Like, what neighborhoods do you serve? Where are you the expert? You can't be the expert of the whole Bay Area. It's too big. There's too many families. There's no way. But most real estate agents to get into the business, they go, well, I'm going to serve all of Florida, or I'm going to, I can do it all. But really being a specialist is where you not only have the biggest economic impact, both for yourself and for your clients, but it's also where you're going to continue to derive business from.
Yeah. That's a great point. I mean, logistically, from being in the San Francisco Bay Area to go from Marin County, which is north, down to, let's say, Apple HQ during rush hour.
Yeah.
Good luck. You're going to be in your car for 3 hours.
Brutal.
One way.
Yeah.
Like it's not feasible. But to your point, if you make friends with all the not even all, a handful of really solid agents in the South Bay, they're going to refer stuff up to you and you're going to refer stuff down. If you make them within the agent community in your own backyard, not for nothing. One agent who's solo gets 3 listings. They can't be at all of them. They're going to have to give you their open houses. Maybe they don't dual agent, double end deals. They might call you in to write the offer. Like, there's so many phenomenal opportunities just by having great relationships with people. And it's the water cooler talk that we lost during the pandemic. That was so clutch for our business. And it's still not back, but it is getting better. And it's, you happen to hear of like, oh, so-and-so's got a property that's in this neighborhood, it's coming up. And then you call them and you're working all these angles and you're like, oh my God, that's actually perfect for my client.
Absolutely. Or just knowing it, right? Like, you may be out in the neighborhood and, you knew about it coming soon, and you bump into somebody walking their dog and, they're talking about, man, there's just nothing on this row of homes. And you're like, well, actually, there may be. I mean, arming yourself with information, you're simply an information trader. So what is it that you can provide to your clients that Zillow and Realtor.com and the MLS isn't already providing?
100%.
And that's the knowledge. It's the who's in the markets, who's coming and going, and the whys. Why are they trading? When are they going to trade? Having all that at your fingertips is really going to position you for success when you put yourself in front of the right people.
Preach. I think especially with the decoupling of commissions and agents then now having to position their value add for the buyers, having access to information that's not publicly known is going to be exclusively the thing that's going to separate you. And then the second piece, to your point earlier, it's the relationship you've established with them and how fast you were able to get them to know you, like you, trust you, and think of you when they're ready. And that's the pivot. Like, that's the part, because when they say, oh yeah, we actually really like this property, but saw that it went sold. And then you say they actually received 15 offers. The top 3 were all cash. The other 6 didn't have contingencies, and it's going to be closing in 7 days. They're like, oh my God, where did you get that from? Like, you know something I need to know. Absolutely. And so you immediately solidify yourself as an expert in a category they have zero access to.
That's right.
Man, this was super fun, Jonathan. I always glance up at the clock and I'm like, it's been like 5 minutes. And then I look and we're at the top of the hour. And unfortunately, we're at the top of the hour. But I look forward to continuing this conversation. Again, you have my personal invite to the Inner Circle group. So you'll be getting that after this.
Honored. Shawn, thank you for having me. This has been fun. We could literally talk all day. Hopefully we'll do this again soon. And in the meantime, would love to touch base with any of your listeners via social. Love to be a resource and glad to be here.
Awesome. We'll make sure we put your links in the description below so people can very easily connect with you.
Awesome, brother. Thank you.
Thank you.